What's happening, YouTube? Anthony on Power Rangers Lost the Galaxy fan film with a brand new PRLostGalaxy 2014 review. And today we're taking a look at Hasbro's Marvel Legends Deadpool and Wolverine movie figures consisting of Deadpool and Wolverine, the titular duo of the X-Men, and as a added bonus, another Wolverine figure. So basically, I managed to get the entire set and the entire wave of the movie figures of Deadpool, Wolverine, and Wolverine with a Headpool accessory figure. But alright, but we'll go over all three of these figures in the same review. Now, as for the Deadpool Wolverine figures and... well, okay, so how I got these, I got Wolverine with Headpool, that being this, Deadpool himself, both from GameStop, and Wolverine in his yellow spandex suit on Amazon for, I forgot how much, it's been a while though. Had these figures for a while back in 2025, but at the time you're recording this, at the time I recorded this, it was in January the 6th, and when you're getting this video, it's sometime in March. Even though it's still wintertime when I recorded this video. Now, the Deadpool Wolverine movie, I gotta admit, was pretty good. I think it's only best to watch that movie once, because once you watch it again, you already know what cameos were there, especially bidding farewell to the Fox X-Men and Fantastic Four movie franchises, because even though this was Deadpool's third outing and his very first Marvel Cinematic Universe outing as well, and Deadpool and Wolverine was quite of a hoot of a movie. It was a buddy comedy, let's just put it that way. I mean, we needed something like that in the MCU because they had to diversify, and what I love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they have to diversify these movies by genres, and Deadpool Wolverine was no exception. It was an action comedy, but it was also a buddy comedy featuring two X-Men characters. Yeah, it was about freaking damn time we actually got Hugh Jackman in the yellow spandex. But, you know, also to accommodate the fact that now that it's 2026, I just can't wait to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again in the next two Avengers movies. And Deadpool is likely going to be in Avengers Secret Wars, not Doomsday, but he will be in Secret Wars, likely, probably so. Hopefully if Ryan Reynolds does come back for that. And... well, yeah, because, like, just in general, I really did enjoy the movie for what it was worth. And the Deadpool movies were actually solid and great, and even though I still like the second movie a little bit more, but the third one was really great in terms of, like, you know, the multiverse concept, bringing back all those past Fox X-Men and Fantastic Four movie characters, and then bringing on a surprise cameo of Henry Cavill as Calverine, well, a variant of Wolverine of Henry Cavill, if he was a character. I mean, next thing you know, if Jackman doesn't play Wolverine anymore, we'll just be able to see if Henry Cavill can pull off the character, because he's old enough to pull off a Wolverine who's been around for a while, just like Jackman was. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at both Deadpool, Wolverine, and as a bonus, if there's time for this review, Logan with the Headpool figure, because I don't know why I was with this, because, like, Headpool, he's not a build-a-figure piece or anything like that, but he's just a bonus figure that he came with. So I'm going to go through the entire wave of all three of the figures for the movie, and let's see how they all look. So front of the package as usual for all of them. Like, for instance, the Deadpool Wolverine logo on the bottom, Marvel Legends logo on the top, and then showing this little piece of paper graphic about which character is what, like Deadpool on this box, Wolverine on this box, Headpool with Logan, and then you got, like, the, you know, control art render of the character on each box, and talking about each of the details about the characters, since there's only like 3 of these figures for this wave. Like, for instance, Headpool is a floating disembodied zombie head Deadpool, the merc with only a mouth, and basically Deadpool with a skeleton head and these weird ass looking, you know, green eyes. But we'll go over this, and then a body of Logan, which I don't know where this came from, but I'm just, again, we'll go over that. And then going over Wolverine and Deadpool's boxes, and here's what their boxes say and everything else in between. So we already know about Deadpool, like, having having hung up the Deadpool suit after a midlife crisis, Wade Wilson is forced to wield the katanas once again to save the universe and finally find a, what is it, wider purpose, or whatever it said on the description for Deadpool. And then Wolverine is a broken and shame-filled Logan reluctantly joins Deadpool's side to fight for their survival and a shot of redemption. And that's what Wolverine from this movie was about. Well, even though it's not 2024 anymore, but even though getting these figures back last year in 2025, and doing a review on these figures in 2026, are these figures even worth the $24.99 each? Well, let's find out and take a look at both of them. Also, Headpool included. Okay, now that we got Deadpool, Wolverine, and the other figure of Wolverine, but in those civilian clothes that came with Headpool, let's go over each of the figures and each of the accessories and see how I feel about them 2 years after the movie came out and 2 years since this wave of figures came out as well. So first we'll talk about our titular merc with a mouth of a star, that being Deadpool himself. And I have to admit, this is a really good Deadpool figure. I do like the shade of red and black. This is very authentic to how he looked in the movie, and as well as the previous Deadpool movies. But now I know that they did a Deadpool figure based on Ryan Reynolds' version from the movies back in 2016 and 2018, and I missed out on getting the figure of, well, when Hasbro did a Legacy Collection X-Men line of figures, I did miss out on the Legacy figure for the 2016 Deadpool movie and Deadpool 2 when those figures came out. But getting this figure makes up for it, though. It's still the same Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, but the color on the suit is more vibrant than it was in his last two cinematic outings. It's really fantastic that they really kept it on point too, with the coloring and then the texture on the mask, I believe, and even some texture around the chest area of the suit, which you can also get on, like, as the camera picks up on that, and it's very fantastic too, no doubt. And I do like how, like, one of the things I did notice about this Deadpool figure, now if we can get two different heads for Wolverine for his figures for this line, it kind of sucks that we never got a civilian Wade Wilson head with Ryan Reynolds' likeness to it, which is a tad shame, really. I think there could be, like, probably due to licensing reasons with, between Hasbro and Marvel, and especially with, if Ryan Reynolds' likeness was to be incorporated with this, because he's one of the many actors that have been in these movies that could have gotten a civilian head likeness, because if they can pay royalties for Wolverine figures to have Hugh Jackman's likeness incorporated, it kind of sucks we don't even have a Ryan Reynolds head, which would have been great. I'm not really complaining or anything, like super complaining and super whining or something about it, but I just kind of wish they did a civilian head for Wade Wilson. If he takes the mask off and then he just shows his face, like he would in the films, and especially like in Deadpool and Wolverine when he doesn't have the mask on, and when he's like talking, to Logan and whatnot, like he did in the film, and what he was like in his previous movies with like Colossus and whatnot, and even his girlfriend Vanessa. But I kind of wish that they had incorporated. That's just like my only nitpick. I like the accessories that he came with. The guns do come out of the holsters, and there's also interchangeable hands for Deadpool, where these hands are more compatible for when you got his 2 pistol gun in hand, but these little small hands are more compatible with his katana swords out. So you got the katana swords already in the the hands for him, battle ready and want to cut somebody up or stab someone, and and yes, the katana swords are plastic. And then also there was this little knife accessory piece that goes into the leg holster right here. So here's the little knife accessory where you can put in this. And that's about it for Deadpool with the accessories and then the detailing and the coloring. Now we're going to take a look at his articulation. Let's take the sword, put the swords back inside so we can see how I can take a look at his articulation points. Let's say, and then you got his swords, right from behind. Okay, so his articulation points, you got his head going up and down. You know, his head can turn all directions and tilt up and down, but I think the head tilting is not that good though. But you do have some butterfly joints. You can spread the arms out, and so the butterfly joints are kind of there pretty much, and they can only go as far as you can go in terms of spreading those arms. And then as for the elbow crunches, because the cold air is kind of getting a little much on these figures now. So you got an elbow crunch on this arm, and also make it look like Deadpool is just ready to grab his katanas from behind and like ready to like hack and slash some people, because it's a Deadpool thing. But then you got the hands where you can got that that articulation, and then in terms of then as for the abdomen crunch, but due to this, that holds the katana sword, sheaths together, you're not going to be able to do much elbow crunching, but I guess you can, but it's just gotta be careful how you're going to tilt him though with that, because with his gear around his chest and waistline and the belt around the waist as well. Then as for the leg movement, now his leg movement is good too, so not the best movement, but you can do some good knee crunching on Deadpool, and also ankle pivots. I think the ankle pivot is, actually, because again, this is a pinless joint, but if I had a pin jointed Deadpool from earlier, and the same go for all the past Deadpool figures that Hasbro did in the Legends line, I would have compared those Deadpool figures with this one. Since this is 2024 when this figure came out, and as well as the same time as the movie, these are going to be pinless jointed figures of Deadpool. So, and then here's the the knee crunch on this leg, and then ankle pivot on this leg and foot too. So we got Deadpool right then and there. So here is the Merkwood mouth. So I went over his figure, and let's stand him, if he's going to stand very well on this blue background. Now let's get on to Wolverine and his figure. I really have to admit that even though we are finally, after 25 plus years of the X-Men in film, I am so fucking glad that we are finally back to comic book accurate greatness with this, for lack of a better term. Because when Deadpool and Wolverine was announced, and when Hugh Jackman was announced to come back as Logan in the film, it was no surprise that they were going to have him in his comic book accurate yellow and blue spandex suit, very reminiscent to the 90s X-Men animated series that I grew up with from my youth. And yeah, there have been other versions of X-Men where Wolverine would have the yellow, spandex on with the blue. But though, I think from a behind the scenes perspective, these sleeves was like CG'd, but the figure decided to go for what was in the final film, because I believe that when they did the movie, Hugh Jackman's arms was actually bare skin colored, but when they, in post-production, these arms were like colored in to make it look more like this was the full sleeve suited version of Logan in the suit. Because, well, they wanted to make this very accurate to how he always looked in the comics and also the 90s cartoon. But I'm very happy we finally, after many years, thank God, we are past that black leather that was, because again, that black leather was so the early 2000s, because the Matrix was a thing. But yeah, but this Wolverine figure is definitely one of my favorite figures so far. But I know there's other figures that I've already went through of Wolverine, and just looking at this, it's like, man, they really did a good bang up job on this figure, with the textures around the arms, the leg, the chest of the costume, because it's, what do you expect from the MCU? And just far in between, it makes it also look like you got pants on for the outfit, but it's still spandex. And the claws, however, this is just like with my Legacy Collection Logan figure that I reviewed a while back. And the claws, when you take the Wolverine figure out of the plastic, the adamantium claws are just like, bent and squeezed together, and that's not really good on the part of whoever made the figures. But this is really good that we actually got a Wolverine. Really good that I actually got a Wolverine figure that actually, because again, when I did show this off when I teased teased this figure when I was going over the No Way Home Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man figure a while back as well, back last year, and because I needed that the accuracy to how the characters looked in the comics, but it was also delving into the fact that, I grew up in the 90s and watched the original X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons from that time, and it just took me back a little bit to my childhood with that. But don't worry, wait until when I get Wolverine from X-Men 97 / the 90s X-Men animated series in the Legends line, and I'll see how that compares with the live-action Hugh Jackman version of this outfit from this movie. Okay, now let's go over his other accessories. Now let me put this Wolverine down for a moment. His accessories are the interchangeable hands, which are just basically like hand just a standard static hand gesture thing, whatever. But when he wants to take, when he's about to take the claws out, so you got that version. And then we got this alternate, Logan head. And I swear, just looking at Hugh Jackman, just looking all rough and rugged, it's like, this is definitely shame written Logan, because this is supposed to be a very shame written Wolverine from a different timeline that Deadpool had to look for in the movie, based on the movie's premise. And this is a good likeness of Hugh Jackman for this. I mean, yeah, of course there's the other one to compare from the Headpool figure release, but this head has more hair, hair detail sticking out as opposed to this. This is just more like streamlined, thin, looking like a Logan that came straight out of Days of Futures Past or something. But this felt more close to how Logan looked in Deadpool Wolverine naturally. So there's not really much. I mean, yeah, there's only stark differences in terms of how the face sculpt of Hugh Jackman looks for these figures. I mean, it's no different than the Hugh Jackman likeness I had for the Legacy Collection Wolverine figure that I already went over. That was like straight out of X-Men Origins or something, like I said before. And I do like the detail done on the hair, but even though this head had way more detail for the hair than it did for the Headpool release, and it's not that bad. But I say that, for this head sculpt of Logan, this had more of the 6 o'clock shadow. This just feels like you do have some of that facial, the facial grime on the chin, and the upper lip and everything. But this actually had more roughness going for him, and, it does look like Hugh Jackman, because, Jackman is old as fuck now, and, this does capture that very naturally. But this makes it look like he's just really pissed off after drinking like 6 to 8, 9, 10 different beers a day, and, he's like a really, really pissed off Logan. Like, you say one thing wrong or do one thing wrong, he's going to fucking like go off in that angry tangent. If you recall in Deadpool Wolverine, in that very famous car scene with Logan and Deadpool, Logan and Wade in the car, when Logan told him that that Wade will never join the Avengers, and how if you recall in the movie, but when he was going off about how every single joke and stuff is not that, he says is not that funny, and he's just like really fed up with Wade's bullshit, basically. But yeah, you got that alternate head for this Wolverine that you can pop off on this, but I'm going to keep this head on because it takes me way back to the 90s cartoon, obviously. Alright, now let's go over his articulation and on to the other figure of Logan, Wolverine, that I got. So his head goes all directions, all around, up and down, and then tilt. You got that. Then the butterfly, unfortunately, I don't think you can do much butterfly joints due to the shoulder pads to the suit. So that's something I needed to take notice before getting this. You can raise the arms up at least, and then you got the elbow crunch. Now, due to this cold air, the elbow, it just won't let me, crunch the elbows all the way as like I want to. And then also turning the arms back, it won't do that as well because due to the shoulder pads. But let's see. But this is as far as you can go with the arms. So the arms on this figure is not the best, in terms of rotating the arms, because due to the shoulder pads, you're not going to be able to rotate those arms. I think you can, but what if this rips off? What if the shoulder pads rip off? So I don't want to do that. So just leave the arms down like they are, and then just see how Wolverine is with his, you know, claws out like he wants to stab someone, and just ready to, like, you know, do his usual, you know, Wolverine thing. So, and then the abdomen crunch on this figure. Now the abdomen crunch on this Wolverine is good. So you got the abdomen crunch feature on this figure, which is probably the best, you know, abdomen crunch on a pinless jointed Wolverine I ever had. And then his knee crunches are some of the best looking knee crunch joints I've ever seen on a Wolverine figure. And I think this is definitely the best on that in the department. And then his ankle pivots and, you know, on those feet. So then you got, you know, Wolverine in his yellow spandex, you know, and then you got that figure. Last but not least, this figure of Logan that I've already talked about a while ago. I do like the detail on the clothes for him, you know, the plaid shirt, then the gray jacket, and then these denim khakis. But I also noticed that the belt is actually painted in. I thought it wasn't painted or anything but I think the belt needs to be a little bit darker, like a much darker brown for the belt, because I like my belts dark brown or black. And these shoes, because these shoes are the same, because this is like, you know, the shoes are like underneath, and him being, you know, he got the costume probably half what underneath, because it's something to take note is same shoes on the, you know, costumed Wolverine, and they had to put this for this figure because I don't know. And whatever this, I think this blue thing here is probably the gloves for his outfit. So that makes sense from a design perspective for the figure. Now, what about his articulation points? Well, his articulation points are due to the jacket, no butterfly joints. But his head can turn all the way around, tilt up and down and stuff like that. So you got, you know, Logan looking very guilt-ridden even more from tilting the head down like this. And then let's take a look at the elbow crunches on this figure. Well, this is as far as you can go with the elbows, I believe, for the crunching on that. And on this, if I can get it. But I think this is as far as you can go with the elbows on these, because, you know, that cold air is getting there. No abdomen crunch on this. No, actually, yeah, you can, but it's just due to the jacket and due to the plastic on the jacket. You're not going to be able to bend. Yeah, that cold air is getting to me, people. You know, you can bend the abdomen down a little bit for the figure. But then you also got the legs where, because, you know, it says these are khaki pants, these can easily bend the knees and you can get the knee crunch right there and ankle pivots, despite the calves being covered with the pants. And then knee crunch on this leg, and then ankle pivot, and yeah. So there you have Logan in civilian clothes, to put that figure there. And then as for the Headpool figure, you know, Headpool is just an accessory piece that you put for this figure stand, you know, and just have Headpool just like this for display. And actually it's pretty cool. And even though it's already past Halloween, but Halloween won't be until another 10 months from now. So yeah, that's nice that we got Headpool, because Headpool was also in the movie, so got him hopping around and all of that, like a goofy skeleton-headed cartoon character with the hat on and whatnot. All right, let's turn the camera over and let's go over my final verdict to how I feel about these figures based on the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Since I went on a little long enough talking about each character and each figure, which of these figures do I like more from this wave? I mean, I do like Deadpool for the most part. I do like how he's done and how he was, you know, sculpted and crafted. If only if it came with a civilian head for Wade Wilson to show Ryan Reynolds' authentic likeness to it. But since Hasbro didn't have the royalties, you know, and you know, since Hasbro didn't have the royalties to use his likeness, we're not going to be able to get that head sculpt. But then as for the two Wolverine figures, I mean, I do like the civilian Logan, but I actually like the costumed yellow spandex Logan the best, because basically this figure is my favorite, despite that there was some flawed arm movement, but I do like these figures overall. This was a solid, 3-figure lineup, to complete the wave of figures based on the film. So there's not really much I can go substantiating any further than that. But that's about it for my review on these figures, because I finally got these figures out of the way in 2026. I wish I had the time to do it last year, but I got caught up with things. So that's it for my review on the Deadpool and Wolverine Marvel Legends movie wave. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, share this video with your friends, hit the bell and notification when I do a new review video or whatnot. Until then, thanks for watching.